This is Dr. Keith with The Truth About Teeth. And today, of course, it's all about the truth about coronavirus. I'd like to talk about what we know about the science about the virus and how that will help us get through this crisis together. It's a scary time and it's a scary disease, and I think facts and science will help give us some peace of mind so we can get through this together. And I do want to toast all of us. There's a little sparkling cider here, because this is something that's going to take the collective effort of all of us to confront this with knowledge and love and concern for each other. So here's to you guys, because we're dependent on each other for this to really have it work and do the best we can do. So first off, what is a virus? A virus is a packet of DNA that invades a host, either an animal or a human, although we are animals, and uses the cells in that host to create copies of itself and reproduce. That's what makes it different from bacteria. Bacteria are cells that can live on their own and reproduce on their own and typically create infections through opportunity. There's a wound, there's a puncture, there's an accident, sometimes there's a surgical incision that becomes infected, but the bacteria has to have a way to get in the body that is not through natural means. Viruses are invaders, and they need to be thought of as an entity that uses you to survive. If there weren't hosts, then viruses would not be able to survive on their own. So if we can think about them as an invader, it really helps us understand that if we do what we can not allow them to do what they want to do. Many viruses spread through fluids. The body sheds fluids. Ebola virus is a classic example of that. The people who are highly infected and even the dead bodies shed fluid that if you touch it, you inoculate yourself. Almost everybody gets that infection. HIV is another virus that causes infection, but it requires exchange of bodily fluids, so it's very hard to transmit. The most analogous virus that we know about right now is measles, that is similar in behavior to the novel coronavirus. So the thing we need to know about measles is that it's a bug that's been around for a long time. And if we compare it to coronavirus, we can see that they both have the same sort of rate of infectivity. They are both very highly contagious. They spread through droplets, which is different than many other viruses. They can be shed through coughing or sneezing or even just normal activities, and they land on surfaces or they circulate in the air and we inhale them or we pick them up. The problem with coronavirus is there is no immunity and there's no vaccine, and it is 10 times as deadly. So we have to think of this disease as something that is extremely contagious and not very deadly. The other thing about it is it takes a while to show symptoms. So we can have people who are contagious and yet don't know it. So let's back up again to droplets. If you are infected with coronavirus right now and you're standing at the end of a soccer field and your friend who is not infected with coronavirus is standing at the other end and you have a huge viral load and you sneeze, and the wind is blowing straight towards that other goal, that person has a very low likelihood of getting infected. The virus particles dissipate, they land on the grass, they go away, and the person is not exposed to a significant viral load. If you go to the grocery store and someone has been touching things and you touch those things and touch your nose and mouth and there's a significant amount of viruses there, you're going to get the disease. If you are in a social situation and you are within 6 feet of someone or 3 or 4 feet playing cards or at a party and you're there for 2 or 3 hours, there's viruses that are going out and you are very likely to get infected. So we got to talk about this virus in terms of contagiousness, and let's compare it to the other coronaviruses that we know about. Coronaviruses are a family that cause flus and colds, and we have natural immunity to many of those because they've been circulating. This one's novel because it picked up some virus from bats and pangolins apparently. But there's been 3 novel coronaviruses in the 21st century. And one of the ways that we measure the contagiousness or the infectivity is how many days it takes to get to 1,000 cases. So here's our next graphic, and we compare SARS, which occurred in 2002, and it took a year for that coronavirus to reach 1,000 cases. Next down is MERS, and that took 2.5 years to reach 1,000 cases. Now we have COVID-19. It took 48 days. That is a whole different ballgame. One of the things that we can note about this is that SARS killed about 10% of the people. There were only 8,000 cases. MERS killed 34% of the cases, but again, there were only 2,500. Coronavirus only kills 1 or 2%, higher and higher age group people. But that's part of the insidious nature of this virus is it doesn't kill people right away, it doesn't show symptoms right away, so it can spread far and wide because there is no immunity to it anywhere. These diseases were almost self-limiting because they killed their victims before they had a chance to transmit it. So this is like a deadly virus that's given up a little bit of its deadliness in order to take on contagiousness. So it's like a combination of these deadly viruses and that contagious measles virus. So that's why our only defense, our only current method of combating this is to not transmit it. We got to stay home. We got to practice good hand hygiene. We have to distance ourselves. You know, if you're walking past someone on a path and you're within 3 feet, that might not be a big deal. If you're hanging out at the picnic table in the park for 4 hours, you're going to transmit that disease. Social distancing works. China was the first one. They were slow to get on top of it. But here's a graph on how the disease progressed in their country starting from December and recently. And you can see that even though it peaked at a lot, once they started, and you can't read the details, but I'll tell you that once they started social distancing, things went down. We can't be the host and the transmitter for this virus because it needs us, and if we behave, it won't be able to transmit. So let's not spread it. It will die out. We need to give it time and our society time to develop some immunity. Those who get it will likely pass it on again. We need to work on a vaccine. We need to be able to care for the really sick people who get it and need that extra help. So just to summarize, this is what we know. COVID-19 spreads quickly, quietly, and far. And it's dependent on us for that reach and that pace of spread. So hunker down and don't pass it along to anybody. We also know that there is no immunity, no vaccine, no cure. So what do? We got to go with what we know. We have to rely on the science and do what we can do. So if we can do all these things that are being recommended, I commend Governor Newsom for calling for shelter in place earlier than many other places. But we can slow the pace of the spread, we can slow the extent of the spread, and we can reduce the total number of cases. So we have to come together for this. We've got to love each other, we've got to support each other, and we've got to stay away from each other for now. Because in the next 2 weeks, as those people who have become infected start to become ill, the numbers are going to spike. We don't need to be afraid of that. We don't need to be hoarding things, especially limes, because I need them for the Moscow Mules people. And we need to take care of each other in ways that seem foreign to us. And I say maintain physical distancing, but don't maintain social distancing. Get together with your friends. Do a FaceTime thing. Share a toast with those you love. And we can get through this together. And that's all I have for now. Cheers.